It was the height of the Victorian era, and the English nobility were known for their extravagant parties and grand social events. One such event was the annual ball held at the sprawling estate of Lord and Lady Fairchild. Guests from all over England were invited to the ball, eager to show off their finest attire and dance the night away in the grand ballroom. The Fairchilds spared no expense in preparing for the event, hiring the best caterers, musicians, and decorators to ensure that their guests would be impressed. As the night wore on, the ballroom filled with the sound of laughter and music, as couples twirled around the dance floor. The atmosphere was electric, and everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. But there was one guest who wasn't quite enjoying himself. His name was Henry, and he had been forced to attend the ball by his parents. Henry had always been something of a recluse, preferring to spend his time reading books and studying science rather than socializing with the aristocracy. As the night wore on, Henry found himself feeling more and more out of place. He stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching the dancers with a sense of detachment. He was about to slip out of the room and head back to his room when he saw her. She was the most beautiful woman Henry had ever seen. Her hair was a cascade of dark curls, her skin was as smooth as porcelain, and her eyes sparkled with a mischievous glint. She wore a stunning gown of emerald green, and as she moved across the dance floor, she seemed to float rather than walk. Henry felt a sudden urge to speak to her. He made his way over to her, stumbling over his words as he introduced himself. To his surprise, she responded warmly, laughing at his jokes and engaging him in conversation. They talked for hours, dancing together and discussing everything from literature to politics. Henry felt as if he had found someone who truly understood him, someone who shared his interests and his curiosity about the world. But as the night wore on, Henry began to notice something strange. Every time he tried to introduce the woman to his parents or to other guests, she seemed to disappear into the crowd. No one else seemed to be able to see her, and Henry started to wonder if he was imagining things. As the ball came to a close, Henry made one final attempt to introduce the woman to his parents. But as he turned to look for her, she was gone. Henry searched the ballroom frantically, but there was no sign of her. He left the ball feeling disoriented and confused. Had he really met someone so wonderful, or had it all been a figment of his imagination? The next day, Henry decided to investigate. He went to the Fairchild estate and asked to see their records from the previous year's ball. To his shock, he discovered that there had been a woman who had died at the ball, under mysterious circumstances. According to the records, the woman had been wearing an emerald green gown, and her hair had been styled in dark curls. She had been seen dancing with a young man, but when her dance partner had turned to introduce her to his parents, she had vanished into thin air. Henry was horrified. Had he been dancing with a ghost? He tried to put the incident out of his mind, but he found that he couldn't stop thinking about the woman he had met at the ball. Over the following weeks, strange things began to happen. Henry would see the woman out of the corner of his eye, watching him from across the room. He would hear her laughter echoing through the halls of his family's estate. At first, Henry tried to convince himself that he was simply imagining things. But as the sightings became more frequent, he knew that there was something more going on. One night, as Henry was sitting in his study, he heard a soft knocking at the door. When he opened it, he saw the woman from the ball standing before him. She looked just as beautiful as she had that night, but there was something different about her now. Her eyes seemed sad, and there was a ghostly pallor to her skin. "Hello, Henry," she said softly. "I've been waiting for you." Henry was taken aback. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm the woman you danced with at the ball," she replied. "But I'm also something more. I'm a spectre, Henry. I've been haunting this estate for years." Henry didn't know what to say. He had always been a man of science, and the idea of ghosts was something that he had never believed in. But the woman standing before him seemed so real, so tangible, that he couldn't deny her existence. The woman explained that she had died at the ball, poisoned by someone who had wanted her out of the way. She had been a political rival of Lady Fairchild's, and it was rumored that the lady had been behind her death. "But why are you haunting me?" Henry asked. The woman looked at him with sad eyes. "I don't know, Henry. Maybe it's because you were the only one who could see me. Maybe it's because you remind me of someone I once knew. All I know is that I need your help." She told Henry that she wanted him to find out the truth about her death, to uncover the person who had poisoned her and bring them to justice. Henry was hesitant, but he couldn't deny the sincerity in the woman's voice. Over the following weeks, Henry delved into the history of the Fairchild estate. He uncovered evidence that Lady Fairchild had indeed been behind the woman's death, and that she had gone to great lengths to cover it up. Henry was horrified by what he discovered. He knew that he had to act quickly to bring Lady Fairchild to justice, before she could harm anyone else. With the help of the woman's ghostly guidance, Henry was able to build a case against Lady Fairchild. He presented his evidence to the authorities, and she was eventually arrested and tried for murder. As for the woman's ghost, she disappeared soon after Lady Fairchild's arrest. Henry never saw her again, but he knew that she had found peace now that her killer had been brought to justice. And he was content to leave it at that. Thank you for listening.